Okay, this is part 2 of the Ward's Arvin branded table radio, and just want to give you a quick update of what I've done internally to the radio. I think last time I left off with installing a dial light. The other thing that I did was replace these old grommets that were in here on the tuning condenser holding it to the chassis. Replace those. Happen to have some that fit in there just right. And I redid the dial cord with some brand new dial cord that I got off of eBay, and restrung it and replaced the pointer. Now, I didn't video this process because if any of you have ever restrung a radio dial, you know how laborious and frustrating at times it can be. It's almost a three-handed job, and if I would have recorded that, you probably would have heard me call out some colorful metaphors, maybe even some that you've never heard of before, because it's just not fun, and you have to have a lot of patience to do it. But I think we've got it fixed up now. Alright, the pointer's on and it's lined up to the dial, so we're back in business on that. And my Sam's, thankfully, had a nice little diagram on how to restring the dial cord. So again, it's just it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just something that you have to have a lot of patience to do and do correctly. And then the last thing that I've been doing is repairing the speaker. And if anybody wants to know how I do that, I use what a lot of people use, and that's just some simple coffee filters. Cut the pieces out. The one thing that I do is I double layer it, and then I use the good old Eileen's tacky glue mixed in with a little bit of water, and you soak your piece. I put one piece on, and then I put another piece over top of it, and that's how I do it. It's turned out pretty well. This is still a little bit wet, so I'm letting it dry. But that's pretty much all I'm going to do to the chassis. Again, the radio plays great. There's no reason to do anything to it. It doesn't have any hum. So I think the filter cap's still good. All the wax caps in there still look in good shape. And the radio's playing great, so I see no reason to mess with it. One thing I was going to point out, I was looking at the Sam's in the last video. I was talking about that switch, and there it is right there. It's an on-off Mercury switch. I've never can see it on the schematic right here, M2, and it very simply just open and closes, grounds the circuit, or it ungrounds it, and just basically allows electricity to start flowing once that little ball moves into a certain spot. So then it goes on into the lamp and to the 35 Z5 GT. Okay, pretty simple power supply. It goes into all the filter caps, and then supplies the rest of the radio. I thought that was pretty cool. Never ran into a Mercury switch before. I've heard of them, but I've never actually seen one, and it probably had a limited application back in the day, but it certainly works well for this. So now what I'm going to turn my attention to is cleaning up the cabinet, and I'll give you an update on that. Okay, now before I totally deem the radio part of this project electronically fit, one thing I want to do is this is a series strung set. Obviously there's no transformer here, and if you come off this 35 Z5 GT, basically rectifying tube, there's a resistor here, R14, and it's basically a filament dropping resistor that goes directly to the filament string for the other 5 tubes. And with those tubes, we have a 50 and 312s. So logic tells us that on this side of this resistor, we should get 86 volts. All right. Now you got to keep in mind that when this set was built, line voltage was 117 volts. In my house right now, I'm getting about 120 right on the button. Sometimes it's 121, but pretty much right at 120 out of the line voltage. So 35 has already been used here. So when we get to this point, we need to find that resistor. And that's this guy right here, this orange-white 39 ohm. And we're going to connect. Whoa. This is really hard to work on because of the way it's built. All right. And then now we're going to have to do this. Okay. Because as you guys know, there is a mercury switch there, and so it won't operate standing on its side. So go ahead and plug it in, give it power. We've got it hooked up to AC on our scale or on our meter. Let it warm up. And so we said 86 volts. Yeah, we got 83 on that side. So that's really, really good. That tells me that this resistor is probably right on 39 ohms, maybe slightly higher. And that's fine since we're in a 120 volt line source. But that's good to see. I wanted to check and make sure that this number was not higher than 86, or else we'd be overdriving all the other tubes in this radio. So, yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape right there. Our filament string is right on. All right. I think that puts us at 118 volts. So, right where the radio was designed. Okay. Okay, moving on. I've just got done putting some refinish onto the cabinet, and it's looking pretty good. I still have some rubbing to do on it, but looking really, really good. And I took off the knobs. Some Brasso on them. They shined up pretty nice. And if you want to know what I did use, I was using the Howard Restore Finish. This is great stuff. If you've got woodworking that's in pretty decent shape, it's a great product to use. And then just another update. Here is the grill cloth, speaker grill cloth, and the board it's attached to. This is pretty old and ratty. Obviously it's from 1948, so I have a piece of this grill cloth that I'm going to go ahead and replace with. And that's not a very big job. That's not hard to do. And then once that's completed, I'll be ready to reassemble the chassis and the cabinet back together, and I'll be able to put it into service. Kind of a nice, fun little short project, a little bit different than working on a TV or just your normal radio, but yeah, this has turned out pretty well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get those last few things done, and then I'll come back and we'll finalize with it back together. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to tell you guys about are these metal pieces, okay? And what these are the basically brackets that hold the chassis in place and spin in the cabinet. And they were kind of rough. Of course, it's going to get scratched up, I think, a little bit by taking it in and out, and also just over the years, I think some of the paint's become bad. Anyway, I've sanded it down a little bit with sandpaper. It's pretty smooth. I'm going to come back and repaint it with this Rust-Oleum Claret Wine. I think it was the best color match I could find. Anyway, that's what I'm planning on doing. You know, just want to tell you about that, and I'm going to try painting those real quick, and hopefully that'll turn out just right. It kind of looks like the same color. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. You don't see it that much. Even with the radio pulled out of the cabinet, you can't see these very much, but you know, something that I wanted to just clean up a little bit. So when we put it back together, we'll take a look at them, okay? Okay, just a short progress update here, guys. I've got those sides painted and the chassis reinstalled onto the basically what's the drawer shelf of this end table. They turned out pretty nice. Looks pretty good. It's a pretty good match. And then the other thing is I've got my new grill cloth placed on there on the grill cloth board, and that's glued and waiting to dry good enough to where I can reinstall it onto the face of the radio above the dial. And then after that, I can go ahead and reinstall that to the front, and we'll be done basically with what I plan to do on this. Here's another shot of the cabinet. Just wanted to let everybody see it turned out really nice. This thing is looking really sharp. So yeah, for 70-year-old piece of furniture, this was taken care of very well, which makes sense when you look at the radio chassis overall and underneath. It looks like it didn't get a lot of use, and definitely looks like it had been stored in a good place. Really not too many signs of a lot of age, other than, you know, had to redo the speaker. But that's pretty common for a speaker that old. And then of course the dial string had worn out, but otherwise this thing does not look 70 years old. But anyway, let me finish up this little piece here. We'll get it back together. We'll do one final test in the shop with it playing, and then I'll show you where it's going to go in the house.
Drinking, and then the waitress eyes.
Here at Line-X, we pride ourselves on protecting what matters most. During the month of September, we'll be making a $10 donation to St. Jude for every bed liner sold. Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all a family should worry about is helping their child live. Protect what matters most this month, and come by and see Line-X in mid-Missouri, off Nebraska, behind the ball.
Got a gypsy soul to blame, and you were born
the senators who were interviewing him.
Just don't have a lot to
Free
choose
toasted
from.
ravioli when you buy any
Don't have a lot to
entree,
choose from
like the chicken Florentine or
on the
lobster
AM dial
ravioli,
where I'm
shrimp
at.
scampi, or pasta jambalaya. Try the open-faced Italian for lunch. They're happy.
Okay, final look at the 1948 Arvin Airline table radio. All put back together and complete.
It's not them.
I'll answer your other question directly because I know
And
some
playing
people say, "Gosh,
well.
you didn't answer the question." It's not mine.
That is just nuts. Nuts. Of course I have nothing to do with it.
Really cool.
Ready to win this game today. If they do, then that's only going to help that newfound confidence that this organization feels in itself.
Back on the campaign trail for Democrats, even former President Obama.
Anyway,
criticized the anonymous
it's a fun little project. Glad to share it with you. One of the first electronic restorations I've ever done without firing up a soldering iron. Didn't have to do too much to it, but anyway, I guess that's the best kind of restoration, really. But again, this will be going into my office. There will be a computer printer sitting on top of it. This little rubber protective mat on there. Occasionally, I'll listen to this radio while I'm working. All right. So appreciate you guys following along. Appreciate you watching. Be more videos to come soon. But until then, I'll talk to you guys later.